So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Wonder Woman, so let's start the series. How long are you going to act like this? At the very least, Naruto's body felt as though it was early. No matter how much sleep he had, he always appeared to be worn out for some reason. He was, in fact, sick of it, but he was powerless to change it. With a quiet sigh, Naruto opened his sleep-deprived eyelids to find Sasuke frowning at him. That wasn't out of the ordinary because the final Uchiha had a permanent frown etched on his face. The way he was staring at him was peculiar. He felt that he looked weak in Sasuke's eyes for some reason, but it couldn't be true. There was a reason they were each other's fiercest competitors. The last thing they would feel for each other was pity. Like what? Naruto answered, his voice unable to contain his fatigue. The last thing he wanted was to wake up entirely, so he yawned a little and restrained himself from stretching. Like the world as we know it has ended. It hasn't. We stopped Madara from letting that happen, remember? His forehead remained furrowed as he reflected. Now, since he didn't know what Sasuke was whining about, he assumed a quick agreement would make him stop. I know the world hasn't ended. Then get the hell out of bed and let's go train. With his head tucked under his pillow, Naruto said, Later. Sasuke snatched the pillow off Naruto's head and tossed it across the room, saying, Now. Later. Knowing that Sasuke would try to yank the blanket away from him as well, Naruto grabbed it firmly and pulled it up over his head in lieu of his pillow. Now! Sasuke exclaimed, tearing the blanket from Naruto's grasp and removing it from his body. At that moment, Naruto experienced the initial onset of fury. Sasuke opened his mouth to respond. Later, Sasuke. However, Naruto outwitted him. Can't you see I'm fucking sleeping? Leave me the hell alone. No, you aren't sleeping. You're laying in bed moping about a woman who didn't want you. A woman who left you. Naruto erupted. Because you made her go. Instead. Naruto's face twisted in rage that he was certain he had never experienced before against Sasuke, but he didn't really care. If you had only kept your damned mouth shut, she'd be here, with us right now. He couldn't bear to look at him since he was angry and upset. Just get out. I fucking hate you sometimes. After an extended period of silence, Sasuke said, I know. Just like you know how I hated her sometimes. Naruto froze in response to Sasuke's statement. He had nothing to say to refute the facts. He was forced to either flee from it or stare it in the face. Not many people knew Naruto was a runner. We all hated each other in some form or fashion, and we all know why. I can't put aside my hate for Sakura. Naruto squinted his eyes. But you can't put aside your love for her either. Sasuke gave a shrug. We're going to find her and bring her home. Naruto was positive he had misheard Sasuke. Wadash. However, I won't allow you to leave the village in your terrible state so she may sulk at me for being so pitiful when you wheeze after taking 20 steps. Get up and let's train, please. Naruto was left in a daze as Sasuke strode out of the room, but he quickly regained consciousness and hopped up to follow him. Although Naruto was unsure of how they would locate Sakura, he knew they had a shot because Sasuke was willing to assist in getting her home. underscore 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 they fought like they always do, destroying a lot and letting go a lot of aggression before collapsing on the ground, bloody, bruised, and shattered. Their faint gasping was the only sound audible as they fought to avoid appearing weak in front of each other. Either of them knew what they had to show, but it was who they were and always would be. "Where do you believe she is located?" The silence was finally broken by Naruto, who was thinking mostly about Sakura but also realized that it wasn't as enjoyable as it had been to beat each other almost half to death, especially since Sakura was no longer there to heal them. Neither of them wanted to go to the hospital, but he was almost certain they wouldn't bleed out. "She's far." Naruto lowered his voice dangerously, looking at Sasuke, wondering why he seemed so certain. Did he know Sakura's location, or had he been keeping it from him? "How far?" Sasuke leaned against Naruto and closed his eyes, demonstrating to Naruto how much Sakura's leaving impacted the final Uchiha. Naruto hardly concealed his astonishment, as Sasuke rarely sought for him first. "She's not in sand, or water. Without a doubt, she is not in Leaf. The last places Sasuke had gone on missions were to sand or water." "How? You've been trying to find her." Sasuke did not answer. Underscore 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 underscore. Although the darkness of the streets frightened a typical person who happened to live in Gotham, Sakura Haruno found it annoying. While her night vision was adequate, it grew tiresome to have to battle a few thugs who believed her diminutive size made her a target. She had just finished her shift at the hospital and was heading home. As Batman had previously mentioned, she had to return to medical school, as they called it. This wasn't as bad as Sakura had anticipated, especially since she had avoided most of the training needed in this world thanks to Batman's connections. She had already passed her first medical exam and would have taken the second one as well if she had been allowed to, but her benefactor, Bruce Wayne, had insisted that she wait. A while back, Kakashi made a point of saying that she had handicapped herself by not arming herself with knowledge, and she'd be damned before she did it again, especially since it was a man who was somehow connected to Batman. Speaking of her benefactor, Bruce Wayne was a very mysterious man, and she made it a point to learn everything she could about him because she was just tired of walking around in the dark. Sakura wasn't an idiot, and anything that had to do with Batman she needed to know about. She started by looking through old newspaper articles about his parents' deaths, and she felt sorry for him since, like Naruto, he was an orphan, just like Sasuke, and she knew that a young child of his age must have been traumatized by seeing his parents killed. He had an adopted son, Dick Grayson, who was around 12 years old. Dick Grayson had a very sad past, having witnessed the murder of his parents in front of him, so it was understandable why Wayne was open to adopting him. Sakura had witnessed a lot of deaths and was aware that sometimes it was hard to cope, and other times you couldn't cope. "You know, if you keep spacing out like that and you're going to walk into a wall, and of course I'd help you up after I finish laughing." Sakura jumped, startled, looked around, and saw that she had somehow managed to get home, then gave Kakashi a half-hearted frown. Kakashi had never been the kind of man who was overtly showy with his affection. A mischievous grin and a hair tussle usually meant he was fond of you, and staying with you in a world that wasn't his own was love. He chose to stay with her instead of going back to Konoha, and she hadn't told him how grateful she was for that, but she had a feeling he knew. How are you doing right now? Sakura yawned, aware of how late it was in her bones, and she was very sure that as soon as she closed her eyes, the sun would rise. I'm waiting on you. Sakura, who had been in Gotham for a few months, would have assumed that by now Batman would be well aware that he couldn't hide his little toys from them. Or perhaps that was the point, as he wanted them to know they were being watched. We had a visitor while you were gone, she said, rolling her eyes as Kakashi pointed to various locations where Batman had the place bugged. It was a question of trust, and she lacked it. Sakura was no fool. She was aware that Batman didn't trust her, and she hadn't exactly been encouraging people to embrace her recently. She had nearly murdered Superman. Clark. Her heart skipped a beat, and then clenched in agony as blue eyes flashed before her. Sakura shook her head. Breaking down was not an option. She had too many things to accomplish. And anyway, Batman's awful habit of following and being a general creeper was enough to deal with. Her heart could wait. She couldn't afford to think about him because if she did, she would break down. You're doing it again. Just leave them alone, Kakashi, Sakura said, annoyed that she had once again fallen asleep. Men were such a pain. He will return if we continue to get rid of them. But when it comes to hiding stuff, he gets really inventive. Playing this game is enjoyable. It would take Kakashi Hatake to get a pleasure out of toying with the Batman, so Sakura hardly suppressed her amused smile. Do what you want. She never once considered berating him. She knew he was up to something, but she didn't have the energy to care. I'm going to bed, Kakashi said, waving at her with two fingers before taking out his book to read. Underscore 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 underscore. Sakura pushed her body upward out of the luxurious bed that threatened to imprison her, headed over to the window, and opened the curtains a bit wider. Morning had arrived too quickly, and she opened her bleary eyes groggily, allowing the sunlight to pierce her retinas. Gotham City. Despite everything, she welcomed the change. It wasn't like she couldn't take care of herself. It was different from Metropolis. It was darker, gritty, and much more dangerous. The best way to describe the city was with drugs, murder, and mayhem. It helped her understand why Batman was so frightening. He had to be. It was what the city needed. She was well aware of how dangerous the city was. But when she tried to help anyone but herself, Batman showed up and told her bluntly that she was in Gotham to be a doctor, not a hero. She minded her own business, or tried to. She hadn't been as successful as she would have liked. Bruce Wayne placed her in one of the nicer areas, but she did have the opportunity to explore other areas. After all, it had been Clark's idea that she depart, so she hadn't really expected to hear from him since she'd been there. Though it was true that she hadn't exactly fought to stay with him, she knew she had too much pride. She simply couldn't find it in herself to beg him to let her stay. If he wanted her, he would have at least somewhat fought for her, wouldn't he? Well, technically it was Batman's idea that she leave, but Clark pushed her away. Sakura shook her head, finding it useless to ponder the topic and grateful for the door banging as a diversion to pull her from her thoughts. She wasn't sure when Kakashi had gone to bed the night before, but he could occasionally be a little violent when woken up against his will, so Sakura hurried to the door to answer it before the knocking woke him up. The last thing Gotham needed was a murderous, sleepy ninja, though she was a little curious as to who would win, Kakashi or the Batman. Sakura was immediately envious of the black beauty with the deep green eyes that was waiting for her as she opened the door. "Hello, my name is Selena." She held out her hand for Sakura to shake, and Sakura instantly responded. "I'm Sakura." Sakura was about to question the woman when she said, "They must have put it in my box by accident." Selena passed her a bunch of letters and said, "I'm new to the building and I just wanted to stop by and say hello and also to give you this." Sakura's lips twitched slightly as she was reminded of her time in the Daily Planet mail room, but the almost smile vanished as she realized that the mail was actually hers. "Oh, thanks." Sakura looked at the letter from Wayne Enterprises on top and wondered what it might be about because she had already turned in all the paperwork Batman had told her she needed to do, so she shouldn't need anything else unless he had missed something, which didn't seem likely at all. "So, are you occupied?" Sakura became aware that Selena had been speaking to her when she sensed reality return. The expression on Selena's face told Sakura that even with the mask, Kakashi looked very delicious to her. "I'm sorry, Dash." Sakura watched as Selena's eyes widened at something she was looking at behind her. Oddly, Sakura turned her head to see what had caught her attention, only to discover that Kakashi had just left his room half naked, as he was known to do. Okay. So Sakura wasn't dead, but she wasn't crazy either, and dating two teammates in one lifetime was more than enough problem for her. He looked delicious to her, too. I notice you're rather busy. And you ought to be if you're not." The implication made Sakura's face flush, and she stammered out an explanation, but Selena winked at her and left. Sakura closed the door, stunned, and heard Kakashi ask, "Who was that?" "A neighbor." "And dress?" Kakashi just laughed, and didn't put on a damn thing. Sakura sighed and opened the letter from Wayne Enterprises, scanning the contents, which actually shocked her because it appeared Mr. Wayne wanted to meet her face to face at some kind of event, which she didn't think was good for her. Underscore 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 underscore. Sakura had no idea how she kept getting to these kinds of gatherings. The last one had ended badly, and you would think that she would stay away from them like the plague, but that was not the case. She was at an event that Bruce Wayne hosted once every few years for those he had assisted, in some way, and she understood that the goal was for him to assess their growth. To put it another way, he was monitoring them. Since she had just begun medical school and hadn't actually used his limitless resources, she didn't think she deserved an invitation, but she somehow felt that the invitation she had gotten wasn't a request at all, but rather a demand. "I have no idea why you pulled me along." There was nothing in this world that shouted, "I have a secret," or "I'm a thief," like wearing a mask. He put a hinge on his face instead, so he was merely pouting because Sakura forced him to take off his mask. In reality, he was just acting like a big baby whose security blanket had been stolen. "But you're residing in a house he gave you. It's only fitting that you accompany me." Kakashi was about to say he was ready to go, but he was paused by Sakura's expression. He detested seeing her cry, even as a child. Taking an appetizer from a passing waiter's tray, Kakashi shrugged and said, "Want to dance?" Once he had finished his treat, Kakashi inquired. Sakura nodded and let Kakashi lead her to the dance floor. She loved dancing with Kakashi, but she wasn't sure how long it had been. Naruto had never been good at it, Sasuke wouldn't do it, and Clark was too busy playing up his ungraceful alter ego most of the time to enjoy it. With Kakashi, however, every step was enjoyable, and she found herself laughing aloud when he lowered her into a dip. She felt that their elegant footwork was attracting attention, but she didn't mind too much and thought she might as well enjoy herself if she had to be there. But when Kakashi paused and looked over his shoulder, she was a little taken aback. "May I interrupt?" The stranger's voice was silky, but she couldn't see him clearly because of Kakashi's body, which blocked her vision. Kakashi moved aside, waved to Sakura briefly, and then vanished into the crowd. Sakura hardly had time to frown at Kakashi's desertion before she was thrust into Bruce Wayne's arms. She knew exactly what the man looked like from all the research she had done on him, and no one could claim that he was ugly. If they did, that meant one of two things. 1. They were dishonest, or 2. They were unable to see out of one eye because they were blind in the other. Sakura was most obviously not the latter, and even while the former was required of her, it did not imply that she had lied to herself. Sakura's heart would definitely have a few heart palpitations reserved for Bruce Wayne if it weren't for his good looks. Although he wasn't particularly attractive, there was something about him that made a woman look at him 3 times instead of twice. His words echoed in her ear as he drew her a bit closer than was actually required, but Sakura didn't resist. As long as his hands didn't stray into dangerous regions, she would be fine. It would be unfortunate to break a man's fingers who didn't deserve it. "You're a wonderful dancer. I could say the same about you, Mr. Wayne. Ah, so you know who I am." He placed a small distance between them and gazed down at her face, saying, "It would be a shame and extremely foolish if I didn't recognize my own benefactor." "Ah, so you're her. If you mean I'm Sakura Naruto, then yes, that is who I am. It's a pleasure to finally meet you." As the song came to an end, Sakura whispered, "Likewise." As the applause erupted around them, Sakura realized that she had indeed become the center of attention, most likely due to the person she had been dancing with. Bruce Wayne lifted her hand, brought it to his lips, and gave it a quick kiss before moving through the crowd and starting to speak, something she wasn't really listening to. Sakura shrugged when he said, "That was some dance." Kakashi reappeared at her side. "I don't get to do it that often, so when I do, I tend to enjoy it." There was nothing worse than being at a gathering that you didn't want to be at without a single friend in sight, so Sakura was very happy that she had brought Kakashi along. Sakura looked around the room, noting that she didn't recognize a single face in the room. "What do you think of Mr. Wayne?" "Those few minutes were hardly enough to make an impression, Kakashi." Kakashi laughed. "You mean?" "Yes, really." Sakura turned to face Kakashi, who was staring at Bruce Wayne, and asked, "Then how is it that you managed to make such an impression on him?" She felt herself warm as she followed the man's gaze, which was scorching and reminded her of black silk sheets and skin, a lot of bare skin. I think I'm going to step out for some fresh air." Behind her, Sakura could only hear Kakashi laughing. underscore 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 underscore. When Sakura left the ballroom, the halls were empty. Given the number of people attending the event, Sakura thought this was a little strange, but she quickly brushed it off and embraced the quiet, even though it brought back all she had been suppressing. Tears clouded her vision, and her feet sped up so she could cry in a place where no one could see her. She missed Clark terribly. Why hadn't she called him to see how he was doing? She had essentially thrown him away for something that wasn't her fault. She couldn't hold it against him. He didn't intentionally forget her, and if she had been a better medic, she could have fully healed him and still been by his side. Sakura stopped thinking right away, and a sour smile appeared on her lips. It appeared that she didn't require Sasuke to minimize her ninja abilities. She was capable of handling things just fine on her own. Perhaps, though, that was the reason Sasuke did it. She constantly brought herself down, and perhaps mocking her was the only way to bring her back to life. She decided to call Clark, even if it was just to say hello, because it was almost a given that she wouldn't be called in on league business again, and she didn't think she could live without him in some capacity, even if it was just a casual acquaintance. The cool night air hit her face as she stepped outside, and the wind blew slightly, drying her tear-stained face. It was weird how in Metropolis she felt like she had a place where she belonged, like home, not like Konoha, but home nonetheless. Sakura looked around as she heard a voice say, "Yes, Mr. J." But no one was there. She shrugged it off and stared out at the metropolis. In Gotham, she didn't feel that way at all because Batman forbade her from fighting crime on his streets, and whenever she did, he always got involved before she could accomplish anything valuable. It almost made her think of Clark, but Clark had selfless intentions, whereas Batman had none at all. Sakura was interrupted in her thoughts when the doors behind her flew open and Kakashi ran out towards her. His henge was gone, and his true face was staring at her plainly, with a maniacal grin that would give her nightmares for years to come. She couldn't help but take a step back because he was frightening her, and aside from when he was going to kill someone, that wasn't really the case. Sakura carefully said, "Kaka-sensei, what's up with you?" He continued to laugh, clutching his chest and taking deep breaths, gasping for air. He collapsed at her feet, and between chuckles he barely managed to get out the word, "Poison." While it was true that a similar situation had occurred before, the last time she removed an unknown toxin, she lost the man she loved. The nature of her relationship with Kakashi was far from romantic, but she wasn't sure if she'd ever be able to forgive herself if she lost him. The first emotion Sakura felt was fear because someone had hurt someone she cared about right under her nose, presumably for no reason at all, and they had used a drug she had never heard of. Kakashi's shoulders trembled with laughter at her unfunny behavior as Sakura bent down and rolled him onto his back. "Can you identify the type of poison it is, sensei?" Sakura knew she was going to have to do this blindly again, but she wasn't going to let him die on her just to keep her identity secret. He didn't answer her question other than to laugh loudly, and if it came to that, she wouldn't have any regrets about returning to Konoha. Before the idea of standing had fully processed in her mind, she was on her feet, her eyes flashing warningly until she recognized who was seeing her, and her hands were just seconds away from illuminating green in a fast evaluation when a shadow appeared over her. "Batman!" She sounded as though she was not startled to see him because he was usually close by if she was in danger. What's going on? Rather than responding, he threw a vial at her. The antidote is this. Make use of it. When he vanished inside the building, Sakura looked down at Kakashi's body and realized that his uncanny, never-ending laughter was making it difficult for him to breathe. Sakura looked at the vial and realized that the quickest way would be to inject it into his bloodstream, but she was missing a needle and syringe. A flurry of green, red, and yellow sped by her, shouting, "You're going to need this!" When Sakura realized she had been handed a syringe and needle, exactly what she needed to save Kakashi, she silently thanked the gods. Sakura stayed at the senior ninja's side until sanity returned to his eyes after administering the antidote to Kakashi. What took place? As she checked his status, Sakura's chakra glowed green. His voice was hoarse, but she assumed that was to be expected. It was also music to her ears, and she definitely wouldn't be upset if she never heard him laugh again. I was hoping you'd tell me. Sakura pushed him down when he tried to sit up, realizing that he was in no condition to move after being poisoned and that she wasn't going to allow it. They briefly caught eyes before he realized what had happened. Sakura, let me up. He's crazy. He tried to get up again, but Sakura pulled him down again. We must stop him. Batman has arrived. He will handle it. Sakura flinched at the harshness of his voice. Sakura. Because she knew exactly what he was thinking and that he was correct just by uttering her name. I don't want to mess with Batman's city. I'm not accountable for it. You are. Though, in all honesty, Sakura could have used her chakra to pin him down if she had so desired. Kakashi pulled himself to his feet in spite of her protests. Then, if I'm your responsibility, you'd better make sure I don't get killed. When he vanished, Sakura frowned. It was nothing new for her to have to keep Kakashi alive. He could be as careless as Naruto and Sasuke at times, and Team 7 was nothing more than a headache, but it was still incredible that he could stand. Since life was about doing the right thing, regardless of what the League thought of her, Sakura slowly stood up. She didn't even question whether she would follow him. She knew that doing so would result in Batman's disapproval. However, it wouldn't hurt to be cautious, so she slightly changed her appearance to make people see a plain woman with brown eyes and hair rather than what they wanted to see. The kunoichi then followed Kakashi's chakra signature back to the ballroom, where she saw the floor covered in bodies. She looked around the room, noticing a green tint to the air, and narrowed her eyes, wondering if this was the poison that Kakashi had previously been exposed to. She hoped the antidote prevented Kakashi from having another fit because she didn't know what would happen to him if he did, but she hoped that Sasuke's paranoia would continue to be her savior and that the poison wouldn't have any effect on her. Bats, hurry up! You're not having any fun with this! Sakura, who had never been a fan of clowns, shivered slightly unnerved as she watched the man in the disgusting purple suit, his face the mask of a deranged clown, laugh wildly, and attack Batman with a lead pipe. Batman avoided each swing, but he didn't appear to be trying to offend. Kakashi showed up at Sakura's side and said, "Tell the boy to help the bat." The boy with Batman was fighting a woman dressed like a court jester, and he was doing surprisingly well for a small child in this world, but the woman was backing him into a corner, and any fool could see that a trap awaited him. The girl will be taken by us. It was a wise move because she had no idea how the boy fought, and he had no idea how she did, and they would only cause each other trouble. Besides, the boy would die or at the very least be gravely injured if they didn't help him, and she didn't want to argue with Batman about whether or not he would allow her to heal him. And Sakura, well? Sakura felt her rage flare as he smiled at her and said, "Don't tear the building down." "I am aware of that," Sakura shouted, attracting the villain's attention. "So, what are we in possession of? More bat freaks?" the clown replied. "No, the costume isn't entirely correct. Have you decided to call your pal Batman?" Sakura knew she was going to regret what she was about to do when she looked down at her beautiful ball gown, which Kakashi had bought for her. She treasured everything he had the audacity to buy her, so she used the kunai strapped to her thigh to cut off the bottom of her gown after saying goodbye quietly. Sakura spotted the lead pipe that the lunatic had been using against Batman flying in her direction as she was lifting her head from cutting her dress. "Well, the more the merrier," she said. A nagging sensation in the back of her neck prompted her to dodge, even if her initial instinct was to just catch it and fling it back. Ninjas don't disregard their gut feelings. Sakura avoided the pipe's gentle explosion that flung confetti into the air and instead hurried in the direction of the colorful boy battling the jester. Grimly, she saw that the confetti didn't just float to the ground but instead quickly embedded itself in the pavement. Before she did, Kakashi got to the youngster and told him to go aid Batman. Sakura didn't have time to think about it, so he did it with some hesitancy. With a broad smile and a massive mallet in her hands, she placed her hands on her hips and turned to face Sakura and Kakashi. "Well, what do we have here?" she asked. A voice interrupted very rudely before Sakura could respond that they weren't heroes but rather ninjas. "Don't recognize you superheroes. You new in town? Harley! Quit the chit-chat and get rid of them." "Yes, Mr. J." Sakura's head was instantly struck by the mallet. She tried to sweep Harley's feet from under her by dodging using the motion, but she sprung backwards in the direction of Kakashi, who was prepared to attack. She was knocked to the ground as Kakashi struck her back between her shoulder blades. He was panting heavily and didn't appear to be holding up well, Sakura observed with concern. With the renowned copy ninja, a master of more than 1,000 jutsu, this was not what she was used to. He must have been more impacted by the toxin than he admitted. This was going to have to be done fast. Harley was still on the ground when Sakura lunged forward to try to kick her, but she slid away from the intended hit. Harley leaped to her feet, and Sakura's mouth twisted upward in annoyance. The mallet slipped out of her hand as she fell and came closer to Sakura. Sakura was fully aware of a few weapons that could drain her chakra, so she had no problem using an enemy's weapon as long as it didn't do that. Sakura gave Tenten, the mistress of the weapon, a small shake of her head. Sakura grabbed the mallet and pushed forward, her speed increased by a small amount of chakra. Harley raised her palm to deflect Sakura's intended hit, and she swung the mallet at her. Harley managed to block, but responded with a litany of profanities. Harley was knocked backwards by Sakura's blow to the face. She staggered backwards and into Kakashi's hands, where they pulled the low-down filthy trick of holding her arms while the other pounded her in the stomach, sending blood flying from her lips. Sakura didn't particularly like the maneuver, but Kakashi's caution to "Don't tear the building down" meant more than just not to do it. It also implied that he wished for her to remain anonymous. He appeared to have been extremely reclusive lately, but for some reason he didn't want anyone to know who she was or even who he was. There would be no gaudy jester that people had seen her wearing while working with the League if that was kept a secret. In order to make sure she made a point, she used only taijutsu and a tiny bit of chakra-enhanced strength. Kakashi led Harley to fall to the ground while watching her till they were positive she wouldn't be getting up any time soon. Sakura looked at Batman, who had just finished his own battle, and walked gently toward him. He turned to her voice and narrowed his eyes, perhaps because she didn't appear the same as she had the last time she saw him. "Batman," he said. Observing the unconscious clown, Sakura remarked, "We'll leave the rest to you." "Why aren't you affected by the gas?" the lad of the different hues said as she turned to go. "What's your name?" Sakura inquired as she turned to face the child wearing the mask. "Robin," he responded quickly and flashed her a sly smile that Sakura had to return. "Well, Robin, I'm not affected because it's only poison." He muttered the words, "only poison," in a questioning tone while blinking in confusion. Sakura gave Batman a nod before turning to face Kakashi, who staggered a little. She shifted to swiftly bear his weight. Before Sakura could respond, Kakashi firmly ordered, "Take him to the hospital." Batman said, "Take him to the hospital." "No." Knowing what would happen if Sakura attempted to coerce Kakashi into going to the hospital, she sighed. Even if he was half dead, he would get out. Sakura felt a rush of humiliation as Batman's cool, collected words tore through her. "You know what happened last time?" I said. "No." The words were uttered for Batman's benefit, not Sakura's, and they strengthened her waning confidence. She was trusted by Kakashi, and it was a wonder in and of itself that Kakashi trusted any medic. With a whisper, Sakura whispered, "We're ninja, Batman." They vanished in a swirl of leaves after saying, "We take care of our own." After placing Kakashi on the couch, Sakura walked to the kitchen to get a bottle of saline she had bought specifically for this kind of situation. Using it was so much easier than waiting for the water to sanitize. "You shouldn't have joined the fight." Sakura scowled as Kakashi replied, and walked back to check on him. Given that Batman had been determined to enter the battle straight away, she was correct to believe that nothing he had given him would be sufficient to stop the poison. She reached for the saline bottle, opened it, and started drawing the last of the poison out of Kakashi's compromised body. "This isn't Konoha. We have no right to interfere in their affairs, not to mention they don't want us to. So you'd let someone die in front of you because they don't want you to get involved?" "I didn't say that, Yes, Sakura, you did. I know right now things are tense between you and their Justice League, but just because it is doesn't mean you should stop doing what's right." Sakura couldn't bring herself to inform Kakashi that he wasn't human. "Kaka-sensei, I could have killed him." He dashed. She didn't want to cause any more trouble by having loose lips, and that wasn't her story to tell. "He's not like us, and I jumped into the thick of things not knowing the full story and ended up hurting him. What if I dash? Life is full of what ifs. That doesn't stop you from living." What happened to the woman who braved the ninja world by taking two of its most powerful shinobi as her lovers? A tiny smile came to her face. That woman was, without a doubt, insane. Sakura saw that Kakashi's eye was closing as he laughed, but she continued to work. He whispered to her before he passed out on her, "Don't stop being you." It's who you are that he fell in love with. He hadn't seen her for 60 days. He heard her voice 60 days ago. Why did his flat feel so empty after she left? It hadn't been this way before she arrived. He was aware that he had been on the verge of falling in love with her, but as far as he was aware, they hadn't passed the boundary. He was deceiving himself. He was aware that significant fragments of Sakura and himself were hidden someplace in his lost memories. Why was he still not fully recovered? Why was he unable to recall? Was this red kryptonite's power? Would he ever learn the truth about his relationship with Sakura? Would he know before she made the decision to permanently leave this world? He had to confess to himself that he missed her. He desired to give her a call. He had not yet used the number Batman had given him. When he told her to go, he couldn't help but see the shattered expression on her face. She claimed that she didn't think she could stay by his side, but she looked at him as though he had betrayed her in the worst way. He merely provided her with a means of escape. Why did that seem so wrong? With no idea what to do, Clark moaned and collapsed on his bed, gazing up at the white ceiling. He had developed a sort of habit of falling asleep when he got home from work. He liked to think that Sakura was still living with him and would return at any time. She would open the door and gripe about the grocery store lines, but she would still start preparing dinner. He liked to eat while he cooked, so when he tried to assist her, she would wave him away. A little smile appeared on Clark's lips, but it vanished as soon as he heard someone knock on the door. His heart skipped a beat for a moment, thinking it was Sakura and that she had come home. He immediately came to terms with the fact that Sakura would have simply used her key if it had been her. When she departed, it was still with her. All it did was give him false hope, and he wished she had. Clark sat up and looked around to see who was there using his X-ray vision. The sight of his parents startled him. Clark got up to open the door for them. He offered them a grin that was actually a scowl and flung open the door. Clark picked up a bag and assisted them in carrying their belongings inside, asking, "Ma, Pa, what are you doing here?" He had the option to bring everything inside. However, he controlled himself since he knew his father didn't enjoy it when he did it. His mother hurried past him and went to his living room, saying, "What do you mean, what are we doing here? We haven't seen or heard from you or Sakura in over a month. We were worried. Where's Sakura?" "You know we live together?" Clark asked, his face flushed. "I'm a mother" was the gift Martha offered her son. "I am aware of how everything looks." Jonathan smiled at his wife, who sulked at being caught so quickly, and replied, "Sakura slipped and told her a while ago." Martha reassured him. "And yes, I'm aware that you've been nothing but a perfect gentleman." She then gave him a soft pat on the arm. Despite his love for them, Clark's parents had a strange way of making him feel completely ashamed. "Sakura, are you here, honey?" When his mother went to Sakura's bedroom and discovered that she was not there, Clark winced. In actuality, there was not even a memory of her being in the room. He had failed to stop her from taking everything. A tiny part of him cursed Batman for assisting her in entering and exiting without his knowledge. She asked him expectantly, "Is she working?" And he realized that he would have to ask her aloud, which would only make the situation seem more genuine to him. After inhaling deeply, Clark responded to his mother. "Ma, Pa, Sakura doesn't live here anymore." Knowing they weren't getting the full picture, his parents simply stared at him. They were aware of their son's affection for Sakura, thus learning of her disappearance indicated a serious problem. In order to validate his concerns, Martha Kent inquired, "Did you two break up?" Although Sakura hadn't explicitly stated their relationship, it seemed that his parents were aware of it, indicating that they had taken it seriously. A girl who meant nothing to Clark would never be taken home. He would only pick one that meant everything, in fact. When they were on the watchtower, Sakura kissed Clark, and Clark lifted a hand to touch the area. Unaware of the expression on his face, Clark's parents decided to store their belongings in Sakura's room, or rather, his spare room, at that precise time. Clark secluded himself in his own room once they discovered something to entertain them. He didn't emerge for a long time. After his mother left on the pretext of going grocery shopping, his father came to speak with him. He wondered why he hadn't secured his door to keep them out, knowing that it was coming. No. He understood why he hadn't taken that action. His parents meant no harm to him, and he loved them. He was happy they were there, whether he said it out or not. When he heard people moving about, the loneliness was less sharp. "Are you all right, Clark?" "I'm fine, Pa." Jonathan chose to press when Clark remained silent when he asked, "Do I accept the lie or do I press?" Jonathan moved toward the bed and took a seat with his back to his kid. "Where is she?" After pausing, Jonathan said, "In Gotham." Although that wasn't exactly the response he was hoping for, it did provide a good deal of insight into Clark's emotions. "Do you want to bring her back?" "It doesn't matter if I do or not. She's there studying to be a doctor. I can't stand in the way of that." "Does she not want to see you again?" Although she hadn't phoned, she hadn't said as much, but he hadn't either. "I don't know." She was upset and saddened, even though it sounded ridiculous to say it that way. "So the two of you had a fight, she left, and you didn't try to stop her?" Other than letting her go, what else could he do? In addition, this was her opportunity to pursue her passion. He had to allow her to heal since she was a healer, right? "Her teacher said I should give her space. I was trying to do that." Jonathan laughed. Despite his sour attitude, Clark nearly smiled as he said, "You're in Metropolis. She's in Gotham." I don't think he meant that much space. "Look, Clark, I don't know exactly what happened between the two of you, but I do know that for most people distance is a difficult hurdle to cross, but not for my son. For you it shouldn't be a problem." After standing and giving Clark a shoulder pat, Jonathan left him to consider what he had said. Given that he wasn't the best person in the world to be around, his parents' visit was brief. Since he hadn't been particularly enjoying eating lately, he was grateful for the few meals his mother prepared for him. In some way, they lifted his spirits and gave him the courage to take action that he ought to have taken long before. The phone in his palm was ringing because of this. He was tempted to hang up after the second ring, but he chose to wait. He wished he had called in the morning when she answered the phone, sounding sleepy. If she had enough sleep, she was less likely to feel upset when he called. Even though he was exhausted, hearing her voice was refreshing, and he was happy he had phoned. "Hello? Hey, Sakura. It's me, Clark." He shifted uneasily as silence greeted him. "How are you?" For her part, Sakura was taken aback by his call. She was starting to believe that hope was the only thing keeping her in his world and that she would never hear from him again. "I'm fine, Clark. And how have you been?" "Good. Good." Again, there was silence between them, and Sakura cleared her throat. "Ma and Pa asked about you. They wanted me to tell you to stop by when you got the chance." She seemed astonished, and he couldn't figure out why. "Really?" It's clear that his parents liked her and relished their time with her. "Yes." She was courteous, but there was something in her voice that made him wish he had visited her in person. "So, you were just calling to check up on me?" she asked. "Yes, no. Sakura, I miss you." After a brief period of silence, she said, "Of course you do. You can't help yourself." Knowing that he had prepared himself for that one, Clark rolled his eyes. There were little bursts of cockiness in her that he found intriguingly alluring. "Can I come see you?" Sure, when did you want to stop by? Now? Sakura laughed with surprise. Now's really not a good time. We just finished fighting some crazed clown and his court jester, so we're really tired. We? Yeah, Kaka-sensei decided he wasn't ready to go home, so he's staying with me. At that moment, Clark became silent as a flurry of emotions passed through him. Fear, worry, jealousy, and a host of other emotions. Wait, are you telling me you fought the Joker? Are you alright? Joker? Is that his name? I didn't quite catch it. I mainly fought the one named Harley. She had this huge mallet that I wish I had pilfered. It was a really nice weapon. She let out a sad sigh. I'm fine, though. Just tired. He poisoned Sensei, so I've been busy taking care of him tonight. And where was Batman when all of this was occurring? Oh, he was there. And he let you help? I wouldn't exactly use the word let. I helped because I was there. It would have been wrong to just walk away. Once more, Clark sensed something in her tone, but he couldn't quite place it. But you're sure you're all right? She exhaled, then burst out laughing. Clark, I can take care of myself. It's over and I'm fine. Stop being such a worrywart. I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to stop by the hospital just to be sure. Sakura chuckled again. Clark, you can come by tonight to see if I'm really in one piece. Just make it quick, okay? What's your address? She informed him. Sakura had no time for anxiety. Before she could even get Kakashi to his room and put him to bed, someone knocked on her door. Sakura approached the door and paused for a moment before opening it. She hadn't seen him in such a long time. Since he appeared to be nearly back to normal on the phone, she had become so at ease that she had forgotten to extend the offer. Even if she wanted to back out, it was too late. The last thing she wanted to do was. Sakura pulled the door open. Given how quickly he had arrived, she had anticipated seeing him in his Superman outfit, but instead he was wearing a black button-down shirt and black pants. Sakura felt her heart skip a beat when she saw the boyish smile on his lips and his glasses resting on his nose. He had a nice appearance. Enough to consume. Despite her want to put her arms around him, Sakura moved aside and allowed him to enter. She had to work hard to control herself. In fact, she took pride in her restraint. His gaze remained fixed on her as he asked, "So this is your new place?" His intense look caused a chill to go down her spine. Clark scowled and stepped forward, putting his hand on her shoulder and said, "Yes, it's home." When he realized how much danger she had been in, his panic increased as he drank in her figure. "Your dress." Sakura noticed that she hadn't bothered to change her clothes as she looked down. The butchered garment from her combat was still on her. She could only speculate as to Clark's thoughts. "It's nothing. Make yourself at home while I shower and change." Sakura avoided making eye contact with Clark. She was aware of the worry in his face. So much for her scheme to allay his anxieties. Just by observing her unkempt appearance, he had successfully ruined that strategy. She felt arms encircle her waist and draw her back into powerful arms before she could escape. At his touch, Sakura shuddered a little. He was holding her, but she had no idea why. She never even considered asking. All she wanted was for him to keep her. That even though it felt impossible at the moment, he would reassure her that everything would be okay and that they would be okay. But the things he did say haunted her in ways he would never comprehend. Sakura found herself unable to speak. "I should not have let you go." I know I was wrong. I also know I can't ask you to come back, but I want to Sakura. He seemed to be both healing and shattering her heart. I don't remember us, but I feel us. I don't want us to not be a part of each other's lives. Sakura gave a small shake of her head. She had to tell him that it would be agony, particularly if he chose to move on with someone else. I can't just be your friend Clark. Don't ask me to go back to that. There was no assurance that he would experience the same emotions again. It was a weird, erratic thing, love. Her heart couldn't bear losing him while remaining by his side like that, she thought. Sakura's heart paused for a while before pounding vigorously again. If you can't be my friend, then just be mine. Did she hear him right? Did she really get what he was saying? I know I don't have the memories of us that you do. I don't know if I'll ever regain them, but we can make new memories. And I'll do my best to make those memories better than anyone you've had thus far. Sakura's eyes hurt with tears, and she realized how exposed she was to him. But for some reason, she didn't mind that. He was not the kind of man to exploit the weakness of others. He wouldn't intentionally try to harm her. A harsh, icy voice that she was all too familiar with interrupted her. You would be well advised to take your hands off our woman. Sakura spun around and swiftly moved away from Clark. She stared incredulously at two people she hadn't expected to see for a while, her mouth hanging wide. In particular, she was surprised to find them outside of Konoha. She looked at Sasuke first. She could sense the aggression radiating from him in waves, and his dark eyes were icy. That expression had not been in his eyes since he had attempted to murder her. Sakura made a pointless motion to keep Clark out of Sasuke's line of sight. She had to try, even if it was absurd given how tall and well-built Clark was compared to her small frame. She then looked to Naruto, whose warmth instantly made her heart sing. She had missed him, and he was her best buddy. That didn't lessen the shock of their unexpected presence, though. What are you doing here? Sasuke's gaze grew strained. At his answer, fire sprung into her eyes and said, I could ask you the same. All of the hurt and rage she felt when she left suddenly came to the surface. She had been forced to leave her house because of him. It was he who pushed her away. He was the cause of numerous negative events in her life. Sakura growled, You don't have the right to ask me anything. I can do whatever I like, and who are you to stop me? Stop, Sasuke. Naruto took a step forward, partially hiding Sasuke from view, using the motion she had just used herself. Sakura was shocked when Sasuke fell silent. Before she started screaming like a banshee, she thought Sasuke would bring up the matter, but that wasn't the case. Her rage was temporarily subdued when Naruto firmly brought her attention to him. Long time no see, Sakura-chan? She couldn't help but return Naruto's goofy smile as he held his arms open. As was typical of Naruto, his eyes glistened with welcome and warmth. She couldn't help feeling relieved that he wasn't upset with her. It had been too long, in her opinion, because she couldn't recall the last time she had spoken to him. She shifted into his arms and embraced him, and when he put his arms around her in return, tears welled up again. Sakura couldn't help but laugh when he put his chin on her head, knowing that he was making light of her height. She gave his chest a quick whack. What happened to your dress? Naruto inquired, glancing at her as she withdrew. Sakura realized she still hadn't arrived at the shower as she looked down. I had to cut it. It got in the way of a battle I was in. Sasuke asked, a little curious. Battle? Sakura discovered that she could respond to Naruto politely after his anger and superpower and their relationship vanished. Sasuke cocked an interested eyebrow and said, "Yeah, and I have to tell you your neurosis has really helped me out a few times here." Sasuke grinned and said, "They seem especially fond of poison in this world." He understood her perfectly. It was satisfying to hear that he was, of course, correct in his actions because she had complained so much about his determination on increasing her resistance. Kakashi-sensei didn't seem to fare too well, though. Naruto yelled. "Kakashi-sensei is here!" Sakura groaned. "Naruto! Hush! He's sleeping." "But Dash!" Naruto glared at Sasuke as he struck him on the back of the head. Sasuke nodded his head toward Clark and asked, "Who is this?" Sakura turned to face Clark, who had stopped talking. At that moment, Sakura realized that Clark had forgotten not just their relationship, but also the times she had told him about Naruto and Sasuke. Sakura's face strained of all the blood. She knew deep down that this was not going to work out. "Clark." She chewed her lower lip anxiously and spoke gently. He appeared to be looking through her even though he was staring at her. "Clark," she said in a firmer tone. He was somewhat bewildered, but he appeared to come out of it at the second call of his name. He started to leave, but Sakura grabbed his arm to stop him. He brushed her off gently and went to the door. "I see you have company. I'll come back and visit you later, Sakura." She looked at Naruto, who gave her a sorrowful look before rushing out the door after Clark, and Sasuke, who frowned. In order to catch up to him, she had to increase her speed using chakra, but she succeeded. While the night air hit them and they left the building, she threw her entire body weight at his back and wrapped her arms about him, holding him close while her heart wrenched in agony at the sight of his retreating back. For a little period, Sakura buried her face between his shoulder blades in the hopes that he would hear what she had to say. His body loosened slightly as he said, "I didn't lie when I told you I loved you." He spun around in her embrace, but Sakura wouldn't let him go. In an attempt to comprehend one another, they gazed into each other's green and blue eyes. "Who are they, Sakura?" At the question, Sakura felt her heart pounding in her throat. She had already told him, Naruto, and Sasuke for this reason. This was not how she wanted him to learn. Sakura squeezed him a bit further and then uttered, "My old lovers." Sakura's heart fell into her stomach as he averted his gaze. Sakura couldn't help but feel that she ought to have lied when he said, "I have to go." Refused to leave after you told him anything but the truth. Perhaps then she would have another opportunity to visit him and explain things to him in a less hectic setting than the one she was in now. "Clark Dash, just let me go, Sakura. If I do, you won't come back." She spoke something that he recognized, but he couldn't place it. "Tell me why you're leaving, Clark. Tell me what's on your mind. Don't shut me out so quickly. Not when we just dash." Rather, he moved away from her and yanked her hands off his body. Sakura became frightened and closed the distance he had just created between them when he lifted his hand and felt his head, seemingly in pain. "Clark?" Sakura didn't notice his tiny frown as he said, "The three of you look like pieces of a puzzle that fit perfectly. If that's true, then what am I doing here, Sakura? If you can think that I don't know what you're doing here, Clark. I didn't call them here. I didn't invite them. I did, on the other hand, invite you. I want you to have a place in my life. I want us to be together." You ran to him without a second thought when he invited you into his arms. Sakura exclaimed, "He's my best friend." We've been through so much together. How could I not dash? As she instantly recognized the person he was referring to. A blind man could see that he's more than a friend to you. Why can't you? Clark asked, peering over her shoulder and into the eyes of someone observing them. He was gone before she could blink. Sakura walked slowly back to her flat, trying to make sense of what had transpired. By the time she returned to her apartment to confront Naruto and Sasuke, she still hadn't figured it out. Sakura let out a sigh. Why are you two here? How did you find me? How did you even get here? Naruto ignored her inquiries and responded. Who was he, Sakura? She could hear the anguish in his voice and knew he had a clue as to the answer. Sakura searched the floor for the most straightforward answer to that query, but she couldn't find one, at least not one that wouldn't injure Naruto. She therefore kept quiet and bided her time till her query was addressed. With a sigh, Naruto started to narrate the story, but before he could finish, Sakura's eyes began to well up with tears at an unsettling rate. All Naruto had to do to decide to be extremely selfish was to utter her name. Sakura. Her face was buried in his chest when she snuggled up in his lap a few seconds later. Naruto's arms instinctively coiled around her. Over her head, Naruto and Sasuke exchanged glances, and Sasuke proceeded to sit beside them. Sakura sobbed uncontrollably for a few minutes until Sasuke took her from Naruto's lap and placed her in his. The abrupt movement forced her eyes to focus and halted her sobbing. She tried to get out as soon as she recognized whose lap she was sitting on, but Sasuke grabbed her tightly to prevent her from doing so. He also didn't pay attention to the poisonous look she gave him. Sasuke lifted a hand and wiped away the still wet tears on her face, saying, I don't know who he is, and at this point I don't give a damn, but I do know he's not worth your tears. And you are? Would have been Sakura's sardonic response to his reply. However, Naruto spoke before she could say anything. But even if he isn't and you still feel the need to cry, we'll always be here to wipe your eyes. And they did just that. Batman was seated at his computer when Superman entered his cave, but he didn't bother to turn around and ask, What are you doing here? But when he didn't hear back, his curiosity overcame him, and he turned his chair to see Superman holding his head. What's wrong? He asked without receiving a response and went straight to the watchtower, but Superman's painfully hoarse voice responded, No, don't. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't. Because I remember, said Superman without a costume, before he collapsed on the chilly Batman cave floor. Tsunade's jaw tightened as she gazed coldly at the report she had just received from Kakashi. She wasn't even remotely happy. She was furious to learn that her apprentice, the kid she cherished as her own daughter, had suffered such severe abuse. All she wanted to do was call her home at that very moment, but she knew she couldn't. It wouldn't have been a pleasant sight if the third had done such a thing to her when she was out on her own. Sakura had fallen for this Superman, after all. She wasn't happy about that. She was aware that her chances of never seeing Sakura again were higher in this relationship. Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha entered her office without her consent when she was thinking these self-centered thoughts. Naruto said, We talked to every person in the village who Sakura knows and none of them were able to tell us where she is. We've searched other villages in order to find her, but haven't been able to do so. If I didn't know better I'd say Sakura wasn't alive anymore, but I know she is. Tsunade narrowed her eyes at the two ninja who were about to be thrown out of her office, preferably through a window. Sasuke replied, As it stands, you are the only person who knows where she is. Tell us, so we can bring her home. Tsunade focused her gaze on the Uchiha. And why would I give you that information so that you can hurt her again? I saw her eyes after you did what you did. You broke her, and now I can't trust you with her. She wanted to be away from you, away from this mess of a relationship that the three of you have made. Give me one good reason why I should tell you anything, and Naruto, I'm talking to Sasuke, not you. In a seemingly endless pause, the final Uchiha stood and gazed at his Kage. Knowing that nothing he said would persuade his Kage to divulge the knowledge, Naruto shifted at his side, clearly longing to speak. Only Sasuke could correct this, as he was the one who caused it. Nevertheless, he might say what he could to encourage Sasuke to speak if he couldn't say anything to persuade his Kage. Sasuke, just tell the truth, and we can bring her home. Sasuke's jaw tightened and then slowly relaxed. Tsunade's eyes met his, and he declared firmly, I love her, and her place is with us. Following his proclamation, Tsunade kept assessing Sasuke and discovered no dishonesty in him. Tsunade looked down at the report Kakashi had just sent and said, I'll tell you where she is, but it is her decision as to whether or not she comes home with you. If I find out you forced her in any form or fashion, I'll make sure you regret it. I shouldn't tell the two of you anything since you chose to search for her without permission. Underscore 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 underscore. Well, look at my cute little students. Sakura was in full medic mode when her eyes suddenly opened. Her aura was shrouded in determination as she stood up and started for Kakashi. Images of Kakashi's face as he fell victim to the Joker's poison raced through her head. A fierce chill rushed through her body, which she could hardly control. Why are you out of bed? Last night you could have dash. As though to block out her words, Kakashi raised his hands. Sakura pursed her lips as Kakashi raised a hand and brushed her hair, saying, I was just going to the bathroom when I felt a few familiar presences. Is it wrong for me to make sure you're all right? He would undoubtedly have a somewhat convincing justification, but that didn't deter her in the least. Her fingers gleamed green as she raised her palm, examining him for any traces of poison. Knowing that she would persistently nag him if he didn't simply let her do as she wanted, Kakashi sighed in agony. Kakashi-sensei! Naruto's booming voice made Sakura wince a little. In most situations, he could control it, but if he got too enthused about anything, he couldn't control it. Sakura let out a sigh. There are some things that never change. Did you hide Sakura here? Ah, Naruto, you wound me. Would I do something like that? Sasuke gave a brief response. Yes. After laughing at his dejected look, Sakura coerced him into taking a seat. Naturally, he did this to give the impression that it was his original idea. Sakura chose to sit next to Kakashi after taking a quick look at the sofa where she had slept the night in Sasuke and Naruto's embrace. Her acts were not ignored. Sasuke and Naruto looked at each other instinctively, both of them aware that this would not be simple. Sakura was thankful that she didn't have to be at the hospital because she had a lot to cope with right now and purposefully ignored the tension between the two men. However, she kind of wished she had to be so she could postpone some of it. However, it seems that some things were simply unavoidable. She was accompanied by Sasuke and Naruto, and it was obvious that they needed to make amends for their past. Sakura allowed her eyes to wander from Sasuke to Naruto and back again, asking, "Why are you guys here?" "We came to bring you home." Naruto's response made her realize how much she wanted to flee, return home, and forget about the world. However, she had once fled out of cowardice. If she did it again, it would reflect poorly on her character. Sakura inhaled deeply and exhaled. She looked to Kakashi, who was giving her a supportive smile. For this specific conversation, he probably shouldn't have been present, but it was too late to dismiss him. He was completely aware of what was happening, and what he didn't know he would learn later because they had already begun speaking. In addition, she was aware that Naruto had once hoped Kakashi would complete their happy threesome by becoming a quartet. It didn't occur. She didn't think Kakashi was interested in relationships with guys, and he wasn't the kind of man to share. Nevertheless, they all felt very at ease with him. Some might argue that they were too at ease, and neither Naruto nor Sasuke had the courage to urge him to go. Besides, she was kind of glad he was there. These days, she was genuinely unsure of what she would have done without him. She considered grabbing his hand, but she refrained. Later, she could always thank him. Naruto's expression was nothing short of destruction as he said, "I'm not going back to Konoha. I'm not coming back to you." She was shocked that it wasn't her own anguish because she could feel it so strongly. That was why she had to get out of there before he did. Naruto was ultimately the one who suffered the most, and she detested that Sasuke was constantly the victim of her problems. Naruto should never have to endure pain, especially in light of his past experiences. Guilt gripped Sakura, and she had to fight back the tears that threatened to spill. Sakura and Naruto took nearly the same amount of time to get better. Sakura remained calm, but Naruto was resolute. Nobody ever claimed that Naruto gave up on anything, particularly love, lightly. "Sakura, Sasuke told you some things about me that Sakura concluded by saying, "were entirely true." Naruto appeared to be about to interrupt, but Sakura stopped him. She could no longer allow him to hide the reality. She was unable to show him the love he needed. "Not right now. My not loving you hurts you, and the last thing I'd ever want to do is hurt you. You mean too much to me to do that. You weren't only my lover. You're my best friend, and I only want the best for you. I'm not what's best for you, Naruto. I left to give you the space to move on. I left to give us all the opportunity to move on. We're no good together. All we do is hurt each other." Sakura was quite surprised when Sasuke softly interrupted. "No relationship is perfect. I was wrong to push you away, to treat you the way I have. That doesn't mean I don't want to make this work. You care for Naruto. I know that. He knows that. With enough time, who's to say you won't love him? I shouldn't have pushed you." Sakura was certain that the world was ending as she gazed at Sasuke. She was positive she never heard him acknowledge he was mistaken on anything. He never claimed that he was mistaken when he chose not to destroy Konoha. He actually never brought up the topic again, as if it were a fleeting whim that should be ignored. Sakura's worries started to get more intense. Was Sasuke being impersonated by someone else in Henge? Had she overlooked something? She looked to Kakashi, who appeared to find her bewilderment amusing. Sakura frowned. Perhaps she was exaggerating. If she gave it some thought, his hesitancy, as though he were choking on the words, was a clear indication that this was the Sasuke she knew. Naruto pleaded. Come home, Sakura. Sakura started to say, but Naruto interrupted her. Give us a chance. This time I know we can make it work. I'm willing, and so is the bastard, to let go of our issues with each other if you would only come home. You don't have to answer right now. Just think about it. I know you may have other people in your life, but for now just think about it. Underscore 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 underscore. Upon opening his eyes, Clark Kent saw that he was in a room he had never seen before. Sunlight streamed into the room through the open windows. He gradually sat up as the events of the day before began to clear his thoughts, bringing one individual to the fore. Sakura. He recalled everything. He recalled her touch and her grin. He remembered how her lips felt on his. Her skin's suppleness. He recalled everything. Every second he remembered all her suffering, all her laughter. Regretfully, that also included him, recalling her love for Naruto, the man who had recently returned to her life. Realizing that he might as well have shoved her back into his arms, Clark gripped his skull. He had to go speak with her. Clark stood up, his eyes widening as the world whirled around him in peril. The door opened, displaying an elderly man holding a tray while wearing black and white. Mr. Kent, please return to the bed. It is too soon for you to be up and about. At Alfred's request, Clark lowered himself. He set the tray next to his bed and gazed hopefully at Clark, anticipating a flurry of inquiries. What happened? Where's Bruce? Master Bruce is at Wayne Enterprises in a business meeting. He asked that I watch over you until his return. And Dash? You collapsed and Master Bruce brought you here since you insisted, rather vehemently I might add, that you not be taken to the watchtower. Clark scowled. After telling Bruce that he remembered everything, he didn't remember much. And he listened to me? Given that Bruce never paid attention to others, that was unexpected. Master Bruce is rather perceptive. I believe he thought since you weren't anywhere near death that it would be too much hassle to contact the watchtower. And how did he know I wasn't near death? He didn't collapse very often, after all. I told him so. Clark decided that talking to Alfred was just as annoying as talking to Bruce, so he closed his mouth after opening it to speak. Clark tried to straighten up again, but his thoughts kept wandering to Sakura. I have to leave. You're not going anywhere. That kryptonite worked a number on you. Kryptonite? It was embedded in your brain. How could he not be close to death? Clark gave a headshake. I'm sorry, Alfred, you're not making much sense to me right now. Can you clarify? Of course, Mr. Kent. You arrived here yesterday evening and your head was obviously giving you a bit of a pain. So much so that it caused you to temporarily lose consciousness. As there were no wounds inflicted upon your body and you had the issue with the missing memory, Master Bruce asked that I look at your CAT scans from the watchtower for foreign objects. They did that at the watchtower. Nothing was found. Ah, yes, I heard that. However, as I was looking at your scans, I realized that there was something unusual on it. At first glance I thought they were mere specks on the film, but after a closer examination I began to wonder. It is my assumption that those specks were indeed kryptonite that had entered your system somehow, and solidified and thereafter hindered your memories. Why didn't it cause more damage than that? I haven't had, that I know of, any aberrations in behavior that red kryptonite has caused before. You may want to ask the person that healed you initially. It's possible that they may know. He was healed by Sakura. He pondered whether she would speak to him today given his actions the night before. He was unable to shake the feeling that he had made a huge mess. Alfred? Can I get you to do me favor? Underscore 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 underscore. Absolutely not. Bruce. No. End of discussion, Kent. Clark stifled his annoyance by pinching the bridge of his nose. Between meetings, Alfred had been able to connect him with Bruce. Now he regretted asking Alfred to get in touch with the man. One of the many mistakes he had been making lately was why he had phoned him in the first place. She's earned her place among us, especially now that my memories have returned, and I can tell you she has not betrayed any of us. I might accept that if this wasn't more than that. Admit it, Kent. This is about you keeping here because you're afraid she'll leave you. I wouldn't resort to such tactics. Bruce went on. If her people have come for her, then you should let her leave if she wishes. He asked. Wouldn't you? But no response. I let her leave me once, Bruce. I'm not doing it again. Clark, she's not from around here. She has a life, family, and friends somewhere else. Have you thought that maybe you're being selfish in trying to keep her here? He did think the same things, but why was he unable to indulge in selfishness while everyone else was able to? Why was he forced to watch in silence as everything he valued was taken away? Underscore 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 Sakura had not been seen or talked to by Diana since the Watchtower incident. She was positive that was due to guilt preventing her from doing so. She felt as though she had violated a trust with Tsunade, who had been her buddy since she had first arrived in the world of men. She was well aware that she needed to get in touch with Tsunade and inform her of what had happened, but she had not yet done so. For some reason, she thought it would be better to speak with Sakura first. She was knocking on Sakura's door while disguised for that reason. The fact that a half-naked man answered the door made her realize she was in the wrong place. He was wearing white slacks that dropped low on his hips, revealing enticing slivers of skin, and his top was gone. Diana turned her head away instantly. I apologize. I believe I have the wrong place. Diana turned to go when she heard a familiar voice, but he didn't respond. If you're looking for Sakura, you have the right one. Glancing over her shoulder, Diana saw Sakura's sensei Kakashi Hataki's masked visage staring steadfastly at her. He just so happened to be fully clothed, unlike the other. Is she in? Sakura's voice cut Kakashi off before she could respond, saying, Really, Naruto? This is all you brought with you? I don't have time to wash your clothes. It's alright, Sakura. I can wear them a few times before I wash them. That's so gross. I have a good mind to hit you for that. But I don't want to hear it. Should I go? And come back at a better time? Laughed Kakashi. For us, this is typical. The rigidity in her shoulders subsided a little as the dark-haired one turned and left without saying anything. Kakashi stepped aside and let her in, saying, "Come in." Diana didn't think it was the best idea, but she did it because she needed to see Sakura as soon as possible. As she was reprimanding a blonde man, Sakura was unaware of her arrival. He hung his head apologetic, but Diana thought he showed no sorrow at all. "You look beautiful." Diana glanced down at her simple attire, a dark blue business suit with nothing particularly noteworthy about it to merit such a remark. Naturally, Diana was taken aback by the man next to her's softly spoken words. She was accustomed to men's unwanted attention, but there was something about the way he said them and then dismissed her presence entirely that caught her attention. "We have company." Sakura stared in her way, and her expression lost some of its vitality, but she wasn't the only one who noticed. The dark person who answered the door said, "I can make her leave." Diana became enraged at the idea of him forcing her to do anything. "Sasuke, I'm all right. Could we have a private conversation? Did she really leave Clark to reunite with the guys who had deeply wounded her? Was she really that stupid? Sasuke? Wasn't he the man she had once been in love with? Why was he in her house nearly nude? Was the other one her Naruto? Were they back together?" While Kakashi had vanished as soon as he announced her coming, Sasuke appeared to be preparing to leave the room, but Naruto grabbed his arm and tried to draw him out, but he shook off Naruto's touch and stormed angrily out of the room. "What brings you here?" Diana was concerned since Sakura's question was brief and direct, and her tone was neither hostile nor inquisitive. "I came to talk." "Diana, what can you say?" "I apologize. I'll tell you what I told Flash if this has to do with what transpired at the Watchtower," Sakura said, shaking her head. "I have no animosity for any of you. Superman was under your protection. I can hold it against you. And yet you no longer aid the Justice League. That is untrue. Harley Quinn and the Joker were recently defeated by Batman and me." Diana tensed up and said, "You fought with Batman?" "Kakashi and I did, yes. I was unaware of that." Sakura simply shrugged, ignoring the fact that she hadn't wanted to join the fight in the first place, and that Kakashi had to verbally instill some common sense in her before she agreed to participate. "Why are you here in Gotham instead of Metropolis? Superman lives in a metropolis. At the moment, it didn't seem like the best place to be. In addition, Batman asked me to stay." "Why?" was the question Diana was asking, but it was none of her business and probably best for her not to know, so she shifted the topic. "Batman hated when any of them entered Gotham. It was off limits, but he had let Sakura waltz in by invitation." "You have visitors?" "Yes, they are members of my team from home." "Are these people you used to date?" For some reason, a note in Diana's voice made Sakura defensive, and she scowled, not pleased. "Is it important if they are or not?" Although she was quite positive that losing Sakura wouldn't grieve him to that extent because she would still be alive, it was best to avoid taking any chances. She thought of Superman's expression and how lonely and wretched he had been without her. She didn't want a recurrence of what happened after Lois died. It would to Clark. Sakura's heart ached when she remembered how Clark had abandoned her, and then she became angry. "It's none of your business, Diana, but Clark abandoned me twice. Given his lack of memory, I'll grant that he didn't have much control over the first time, but he chose to leave me and the heart I wanted to give him the second time." Sakura glanced around her and said, I put aside my pride and asked him not to leave me. I don't see any evidence that I persuaded him to stay. Even if they are somewhat aware of my feelings for him, I can still see that Naruto and Sasuke are still present. And that really does mean a lot, Diana. I just lost Clark. He didn't even give us an opportunity to discuss it and put things right. Do you know how I'm feeling at the moment? It didn't take long to realize that Sakura was getting worked up and that Diana had chosen the wrong approach to mend the damaged relationship between them. Before Diana could think of anything to do to make things right, the man she had seen reprimanding Sakura earlier suddenly materialized and drew her back into his embrace. When Sakura would have clearly pushed away, he muttered, I do. You wish you could find them and convince them that whatever was wrong, you could work it out, he said, tightening his grip. You want them to understand how much you need and adore them. How it would be okay as long as you had them by your side, even if they would always love someone else instead of you. It is always better to suffer with them than to suffer without them. With the door open behind her and Kakashi Hatake waiting for her, Diana cautiously started to back away, realizing that she was interrupting a very intimate moment. Diana remained silent until she could no longer do so after she left the room and Kakashi shut the door behind them and started to walk her out. Isn't she going home with them? It's possible, but truthfully I don't know. Don't you think those two men really adore her? They do. Clark also adores her. Even without his recollections, Kakashi knew that the man was really in love with Sakura, and he felt sorry for her because he knew she would soon have to make a crucial decision. He may not remember it, but he does, he said without responding. Do you think she will ever forgive me? Diana asked, letting out a sigh and gazing up at the sky. Sakura only mentioned Diana when he brought her and her amazing legs into the conversation, and he didn't even mind that she was taller than him. In fact, he was positive it made her more attractive. Sakura isn't the type to hold grudges, if she even has one in the first place. Kakashi took a discreet look at the legs that were on display, well aware that he was risking his life, but some things were just worth it. After giving it some thought, I realized that you were correct. I was Sakura's poor guardian. I also want to apologize to you for that. I am not Sakura's guardian. You don't have to say sorry to me. No. I didn't say you were. But you are someone who is concerned about her. To keep her safe, you remain with her. You adore her. Kakashi looked up at the sky and considered what Diana had said. He did care about Sakura and wanted to see her happy, but he wondered if she was misinterpreting his love for her and confusing it with something else. That just wouldn't work. She needed to know that he was not only accessible but also interested, so there was no need in holding back when he said, You do know I'm not in love with her. I never thought you were. As Diana's eyes widened, Kakashi reached for her hand and brought it to his covered lips, saying, Good, then you won't be confused when I do this. He didn't try to hold on to her hand when she quickly withdrew it. I'm sorry if I gave you the wrong impression, but you have other things on your mind. Yes, I am aware of it. Sakura informed me. Then why would you make a romantic overture when you're aware that I'm not interested? So that you remember that you have options, Kakashi said with a smile. Men of the Bat persuasion are not the only ones. In Metropolis, the abandoned amount of Lex Luthor sat in his appointment, staring out his window. Aback, he heard a slight beating on his door. He didn't bother to about-face about and absolute the words, Enter. He knew who it was afterwards, accepting to see her. Her footsteps were silent, but sure. He never regretted a additional of demography her in. Mercy was admirable but dangerous. She was one of the few bodies that he anticipation was somewhat reliable. I got the samples and abstracts you requested, Lex. Slowly Lex swiveled his armchair about and connected his hand, cat and mouse, for Mercy to accord him the documents. She did so afterwards hesitation. His eyes scanned every detail as affairs formed in his apperception as he went along. This was activity to be interesting. Actual interesting. Lex smiled. Time anesthetized already added, and Clark still hadn't begun the adventuresomeness to access Sakura afterwards his errant assholey. Admitting his admiration to be egocentric and ascendancy her to him, she was still in town. He took that as an assurance that she wasn't activity to leave. However, he could acquire that allotment of what Bruce said rang true. Sakura apparently did acquire ancestors that she was acquisitive to see already more. Her mother, her father. Even if he capital to be selfish, it wasn't right. So he was activity to allocution to her, and maybe this time they'd acquire a complete conversation. He aloof had to acquisition her first. Sakura was still in Gotham. Naruto and Sasuke were still with her. Naruto's appeal abashed her added than she anticipation accessible, and she wasn't absolutely able to accelerate them home, alike admitting the little accommodation she aggregate with them was cramped. That resulted in Sakura administration a bed with Kakashi while Naruto and Sasuke aggregate the bedfellow room. They hadn't been captivated with that arrangement, but she wasn't about to allure them into her bed because she knew area that would lead, and aback she couldn't accomplish them any promises that meant they had to accumulate there calmly to themselves. The accuracy that she didn't appetite to acquire to herself was that she was still cat and mouse for her cool man to acknowledgment to her. Kakashi, o astute one that he claimed to be, ample out what she was accomplishing and alleged her out on it. They were, incidentally, in Metropolis. Kakashi asked that she appear with him on some array of assignment that she knew annihilation about. They were alive covertly, genjutsu intact, on some activity of his, when Sakura blinked and came to abrupt realization. We didn't acquaint Sasuke and Naruto about Batman and his nosy tendencies. If they annihilate him, it saves me the trouble. At Atomic they apperceive he's an issue. Sakura looked up at Kakashi, who abandoned smiled bottomward at her innocently. Sakura smacked her face, affronted, causing Kakashi to chuckle. She agilely punched him in the arm, alike admitting he adapted a abundant harder punch. She had told Naruto and Sasuke a little about the League, and how she had been alive with them. Naruto, predictably, admired the abstraction of the League, and Sasuke was rather blah about the accomplished thing. The abandoned affair that bent Sasuke's absorption about the League was their abilities. She had to, somehow, explain they weren't bloodline limits. It had been a doozy of a conversation. Well, I'm not charwoman up any claret aback we get home. We'll accomplish them do it. If they accomplish a mess, they can apple pie it up. I could acquire affidavit you had them abode broken. Despite herself, Sakura was anon laughing. What are we accomplishing in Metropolis, sensei? We're activity to accommodated edition, and afresh we're activity to do article that is advised actionable in this world. Sakura froze, cerebration of the Justice League and their morals. Seriously? Would I annoyance you all the way achievement on a bald whim? Yes. Sakura deadpanned, but Kakashi abandoned shrugged, not caring if her words had an arena of accuracy to them. We aren't absolutely achievement too. Does it bother you that we are? Sakura opened her aperture to reply, but Kakashi wasn't finished. Or does it bother you what your boy in dejected would anticipate if he knew? Sakura pursed her aperture together, clumsy to reply. Kakashi's articulation bargained, and he leaned in abutting to her. Some would acquire been afflicted by how abutting he was, but Sakura was acclimated to Kakashi in means that a lot of bodies aloof didn't understand. We're ninja, Sakura. If necessary, we kill, steal, and a host of added things because it's all important to get the job done. It's all important for Konoha. And what's so important that we acquire to do this? Kakashi eyed her steadily for a while before answering. I don't acquire why Lex Luthor gave you the chaplet that he did. It wasn't an answer, but it did accompany up absolutely a few questions. Why did Luthor accord her that necklace? Sure, his agenda said it was an apology, but she couldn't assurance that. Abnormally now that she knew it was abstemious with kryptonite. Did that beggarly that he knew that she would appear in a budding acquaintance with Superman? Did he apperceive of her affiliation to Superman? Had he somehow credible that Clark was Superman? A cilia of abhorrence slid toward her aback at the thought. He had already about dead Clark once. If he knew who Clark was, what was to stop him from aggravating again? There was nothing. She wasn't about to let that happen. Clark was in crisis, and she'd be accursed if she let some affluent man with a circuitous annihilate the man she loved. Sakura's blooming eyes blurred in anger. Let's go. No. Her acrimony slipped abroad and was replaced by a bashing that was credible to the copy ninja, so he connected on. You've appeared to the amiss cessation, Sakura. Sakura scowled. He didn't apprehend minds. He didn't apperceive what she was thinking. You're apprehensive if Luthor somehow ample out the character of Superman. Or maybe he did apprehend minds aloft to occasion. One never knew with Kakashi. It was apparently why bodies said he was a man never to underestimate. You should be alarmed whether or not he knows who you are and area we appear from, because, accustomed what I do apperceive of him, if he does, Konoha could possibly be in danger. Sakura paled. He was right. It was a cessation that hadn't alike appeared to her mind. Although she didn't apperceive what Lex would possibly appetite with Konoha or her for that matter. Compared to the apple he lived in, there was little to action in hers. So afore we go any further, I charge to apperceive, and so do you, area do your loyalties lie. It was accurately in the face that she acquainted was undeserved. Sakura's aspect channeled as Kakashi stared at her intently. Kakashi-sensei, you apperceive I'm a loyal ninja of Konoha. For how long? Because we both apperceive your cat and mouse for him to appear back to you. Sakura acquainted a billow of acrimony blitzed through her veins. I'm not. Sakura, you and I both apperceive that you don't adulation Naruto and Sasuke anymore. Not like that, at least. She had no abstraction how the chat affronted to this, but in achievement it was bigger to the one they were on the bluff of having. Still, it fabricated her affronted that he was bold so abounding things about her. It fabricated her affronted that he was attractive at her animosity after peace than she was. So she aloft her button and looked at him defiantly. You don't apperceive how I feel, so don't acquire to acquaint me about what's in my heart. Afterwards what do you apperceive about adulation anyway? Kakashi's aspect blurred and Sakura knew she had beyond all altered kinds of lines, but she didn't care. Not appropriate that additional, at least. It's not about alive love. It's about alive you. And I apperceive you, Sakura. Sakura couldn't appear up with acknowledgement to that. Maybe she could acquire a back she was younger, but now that she knew Kakashi better, now that they were after peace than they any time had been in her adolescence. She couldn't abjure his words. She could, though, feel regret, but it would be too little too late. Kakashi ran a duke over his face. Look, this is advancing out wrong. Sakura, you should apperceive that if you adjudge to breach achievement, I can't breach with you. What? Why not? Sensei, if I did article to affront you then, it's not that, Sakura. Then what is it? You can't aloof allege of me accepting cagey loyalties to my apple for no acumen and afresh acquaint me your abrogation me behind. I've already absence so abundant and now you're cogent me I'm activity to lose you too. Kakashi didn't reply, but connected to attending at her silently. I'm all abandoned here. The League doesn't assurance me. My accord with Diana is shaky. Clark larboard me, and I acquired to accelerate Naruto and Sasuke home. What am I declared to do afterwards, you? Kakashi accomplished out, and wiped abroad the tears that streamed bottomward Sakura's cheeks unbeknownst to her. Tsunade is activity to retire soon. I acquired to go aback and booty her place. But Naruto isn't accessible yet. As abundant as I animosity the abutting Hokage is activity to be me. Sakura bit her basal lip as she had annihilation she could anticipate of to say. I won't be able to breach achievement abundant best to assure you. Protect Dash? These people, this league, may eventually acquire you, Sakura, but they won't anytime acquire you. I'm not cogent you not to stay, or not to do what you feel is best. I'm cogent you that if you breach here, if you accord them your adherence, you will acquire to absolutely change the way you think. You will acquire to change the woman you've become. And that was the body of the matter. He didn't appetite them to change her. He admired the woman she had become, and he didn't appetite her to lose herself afresh because of some man. Sakura's basal lip trembled. Go home, Sakura. Amount out what your activity to do. But, that's an order. Kakashi affronted and absolved abroad, and Sakura didn't apperceive what aching more, Clark walking abroad from her or Kakashi. Still, she affronted and absolved away, but it was apparently to prove that, admitting what he may anticipate, she was a loyal shinobi of Konoha. She would coursing orders. A few canicule prior, Kakashi Hatake was alone. Sakura was out about accomplishing article with Sasuke and Naruto. He hadn't been advantageous to abundant absorption aback, she told him, area she was going. Perhaps he should acquire aback Naruto and Sasuke were decumbent to agitation in the best inappropriate of places. Kakashi affronted his arch appear the aperture already the complete of animadversion accomplished his ears. He glanced at the aperture quizzically as he and Sakura didn't accustom visitors that weren't of the bat persuasion, which was aloof accomplished by him. He wasn't abundant of a body's actuality anyway. Still, there was no abstinent they had a visitor, and while it was appetizing to aloof avoid the aperture, his concern got the best of him. Although they did say concern dead the copycat, he was assured abundant to apperceive that alike if it did booty him out he wouldn't go bottomward alone. He airtight his book shut and rose to his anxiety, striding anxiously and silently to the door. He didn't cartel glance out of the peephole, because for some acumen he anticipation those things were aloof as alarming, and accepted the aperture accessible with no clue as to who was on the added side. His fingers calmly fabricated a carbon which alleged out, "Who is it?" while he went to his bedchamber to retrieve a few added possibly all-important weapons. "Hi, it's your acquaintance Selena." He had no abstraction who that was, and yet he accustomed his carbon to acknowledgment the aperture anyhow, while he waited in the shadows. The aperture swung open, absolute, a woman who was beauteous, and he vaguely recalled seeing her before, but area he couldn't absolutely remember. His carbon gazed at her, his aspect arched, cat and mouse for her to analyze herself further. I met your acquaintance Sakura a while back. Kakashi muttered cat and mouse for her to get to the point. She was one of Sakura's acquaintances. Although he was assertive, she hadn't mentioned anyone by the name of Selena to him. May I appear in? Since she hadn't fabricated any moves signaling she was of any crisis to him, he shrugged and stepped abreast acceptance her entrance. If necessary, he could consistently beating her out and leave her lying al fresco the door. Although that apparently wouldn't go over well. Not a man of abounding words, I see. Selena beyond the beginning and glanced about while Kakashi shut the aperture abaft her. I acquire you're apprehensive why I'm here. It would be absurd if I didn't. Are we activity to angle achievement in the aperture all day, or are you activity to acquiesce me to appear in and sit down? Kakashi's eye creased. The aperture is accomplished with me. Her eyes widened in what he affected to be abruptness afore they narrowed at him. Your acquaintance is a lot added pleasant. I admiration why that is. Kakashi didn't acknowledgment to her statement. He saw no charge to abnormally aback she seemed to be fishing for information. He had no admiration to booty the bait. Ready to cut to the chase? Kakashi inquired. She advised him carefully, acutely aggravating to barometer whether or not he was serious. She wasn't acquainted that his affectation awarded him with an abundant poker face. If that's the way you appetite it, I appetite to apperceive how it is that you managed to breach into LexCorp afterwards, bringing the acrimony of Lex Luthor bottom-ward on your head. Kakashi smiled pleasantly. I acquire no abstraction what you're talking about. Selena accomplished him and into the accommodation he aggregate with his above student. Oh, you know. Every bandit about knows that there's a new amateur in the game. Actual few acquire the intelligence to clue him down. And you acquire this declared intelligence? Ire flashed in her eyes and he was assertive she was about to bang him, but she aseptic herself. I do, and you are able-bodied acquainted of it. Kakashi had no abstraction how she managed to acquisition out about his breaking and entering into LexCorp, but he was cautiously intrigued. He had burst into LexCorp a while back Sakura was blockage with her cool boyfriend. What he had begin was a can of worms that shouldn't acquire been opened. Lex Luthor, while actuality a Blaze agent, was about bedeviled with Superman, or added accurately, he was bedeviled with a ward away to exhausted him if not absolute annihilate him. It was during his explorations in LexCorp that he began out about kryptonite, and read kryptonite the altar that about dead the Superman. It had taken in disproportionate amount of wit and accomplishment to breach into Lex Luthor's appointment, and chase through his accoutrements, and he had been animated that aback the man had absorbed Sakura into his affairs in the aboriginal place. It went afterwards adage that the Sharingan was an advantageous tool. You took article from LexCorp, article of amount, and anyone who knows Lex Luthor knows that if you booty what is his he will coursing you bottom-ward to the ends of the earth until he finds you takes aback what is his and kills you for it. Why didn't he? Because Kakashi was a man who knew how to awning his tracks. Luthor hadn't appear for him because he didn't apperceive who to appear for. There was no way in hell he would flit into his abode of business afterwards a acceptable beard, and he acclimated actual little genjutsu to actualize it. You do apprehend you complete like a agitated lunatic? Perhaps you should leave. Fine. Accumulate your secrets. However, I was acquisitive to action a trade. Kakashi's carbon aloft a brow. Oh? She anesthetized him a flyer that he aloof noticed was in her hand. He wondered area she pulled it from a back he wasn't advantageous attention. It was accessible that she had a ambush or two up her own sleeve. Am I to acquire that your befalling is of the bent persuasion? She smiled. In 3 Canicule Lex Luthor is activity to be achievement in Metropolis at the Museum of Natural Arts at 6 o'clock. Kakashi stared at the cardboard intensely. I acquire it on acceptable ascendancy that while you did breach into Luthor's appointment and took something, you didn't get to accomplish as absolute of a chase as you would acquire liked. Advise me with this befalling and I can get you through the aegis measures he's added aback your little visit. The aboriginal Kakashi bankrupt his eyes and swore internally. He absent someone. Addition had slipped accomplished him, and now he had to pay the consequences. His apperception flitted through all the altered scenarios that his aberration could amount him. He didn't like the answers he was advancing up with. And what makes you anticipate that I charge you? Her aperture connected into a Cheshire-like grin, and Kakashi could feel himself starting to frown. You don't not perceive who I am, do you? Was he declared to? If so, he didn't get the announcement on that one. With that, she absolved out the door, but best absolutely not out of his life. Kakashi's carbon bankrupt the aperture abaft her, and he thereafter dispelled it. The cardboard she had accustomed him floated to the ground. Kakashi absolved over and bested up. On it was the account of a chaplet encased in atramentous diamonds, but as the centerpiece was a cat's eye gemstone. Kakashi smiled grimly. He was absolutely intrigued. It was an acceptable affair. He consistently destroyed the Batman's spyware. Contrarily, he could be in a blousy situation. Sakura was rather bewildered. She was additionally abashed and hurt. The kunoichi had never gotten into an altercation with Kakashi afore, and she didn't apperceive how to booty it. He had been here, attention her? Had Tsunade put him up to that? Or was it article he absolutely to do on his own? He was activity to be the abutting Kage? It was too abundant advice for her brain. She couldn't absolutely acquire it all, so she pushed it all to the aback of her apperception and opened the aperture to her accommodation already she fabricated at home, abandoned for accustomed aroma to hit her nose. Ramen. Sakura trudged to the kitchen to see what blend Naruto had fabricated, abandoned to be abundantly surprised. The kitchen was categorical and Naruto was sitting at a table bistro his food. She was addled and aback. Naruto looked up and smiled at her. She was assertive. He knew why. I had to accomplish a few changes since you left. Sakura sighed and abashed and sat beyond from him. He didn't absolute say he had taken her for granted, but she knew what he meant. She was accusable demography him for accepted as able-bodied, aloof in altered ways. Why are you aback so soon? Sensei said the two of you would be gone for a while. He beatific me home. We had a disagreement. Naruto looked at her curiously, but she didn't elaborate. Naruto connected bistro and Sakura artificial her aerial alert for Sasuke's presence, but was clumsy to acquisition it. Maybe it was because Naruto knew her so able-bodied, or maybe she was obvious, but he knew what she was accomplishing and absently to put her out of her misery. He's out. You let him go out on his own here? If we went calm we would be accountable to abort something. His point was able-bodied taken. What do you anticipate of this place? It's different. That was Naruto assuming a bit of diplomacy. He didn't like it. Not a little. She was afraid he wasn't a bit afraid about absent to go home. You and Sasuke should go home. Is that what you absolutely want? With Kakashi abrogation as well? No. She capitaled them to stay, but if she told them to breach, that would mean, to them at least, that she capital added than she was accommodating to give. Naruto, you apperceive I can't be with the two of you anymore. It's over amid us. I ambition I could accept you, Sakura, but aback you attending at me, even Sasuke, sometimes it doesn't feel over. Sakura didn't apperceive what to say to that. What looks had she been giving the two of them? Had she been arched them on? Guilt abounding her senses. No admiration. Kakashi was affronted at her. I apperceive you acquire animosity for that guy. I adulation him, Naruto. Naruto flinched and looked down. Does he adulation you? Because I do and Sasuke does as well. Are you adulatory for article that will never happen? Sakura's apperception anon glossed over Sasuke's declared adulation for her. She didn't accept that in the slightest. Naruto's additional catechism was articles she couldn't answer. She didn't know. Naruto accomplished beyond the table and took her duke in his. This time he met her eyes boldly. Let us adulation you. This time will be better. This time will accomplish a work. You can't allege for Sasuke. We both apperceive that Sasuke and I are like oil and vinegar. We don't mix. And we're all to accusation for that. We acquire these grudges. A joint anniversary added that we acquire to let go. I don't acquire animosity against Sakura, you abhorrent Sasuke, because he loves me added than he loves you. Sakura gasped. She couldn't accept he declared it so above board and plainly. I abhorrent Sasuke because you adulation him, and you don't adulation me, and Sasuke hates you because I adulation you added than I adulation him. So we all aloof basically fucked this accomplished affair up. A articulation disconnected them all and Sakura affronted her arch to see Sasuke staring at them both intently. So we're achievement to Alpha over and fix it. She hadn't heard him appear and yet now that she knew he was there she couldn't booty her eyes off him. His eyes were abounding of absorbed and determination. It fabricated her nervous, so she confused in her armchair an arrogant accomplishment to adumbrate how ashamed she was. Sasuke absolved over and took a bench at the table with them. Naruto pulled his duke abroad from chastening and Sasuke, to her abiding astonishment, effective both of their hands. We're broken. No, I was burst and the two of you approved to advice fix me, but in the end I bankrupt you both. Let me fix what I acquire broken. Sakura aback began to clasp Sasuke's duke tightly. He awkward aback aloof as hard. Naruto accomplished over and effective her duke already added causing the three of them to anatomy a circle. Don't accomplish me beg. It was a plea, from Sasuke. It was in that additional that Sakura started to accept that maybe Naruto was right. Maybe Sasuke did adulation her. Sasuke felt bashful and they all artlessly afraid at anniversary, others calmly as if they would abandon the moment they let go. A breach slid bottomward Sakura's face, and the accommodation her affection had fabricated wavered. Ninjas were the affliction of Batman's existence. Perhaps that was a slight exaggeration. A allotment of him was amused by Kakashi Hataki's adeptness to baffle him at every turn. The man Sakura alleged the copy ninja was ablaze and he was man abundant to accede that. However, he wasn't defective in the accuracy administration either, and it seemed that he had gotten one over on the earlier ninja. Computer, amplify sound. Kakashi Hataki's articulation abounding the bat cave. Sasuke, Naruto backpack all Sakura's belongings. Seal her things in scrolls if you acquire them. Batman listened to ambiguity sounds as either man replied, but jumped to do his bidding. Sakura's articulation abounding the room. Sensei, what's activity on? Why dash? You're not blockage achievement additional longer. Batman could apprehend affliction edge into Sakura's voice. I am on a sabbatical. You can't just, when it comes to your assurance I can and I will. What is activity on? Lex Luthor is bedeviled with all things Superman. We knew that already. Yes, but you're included in all things Superman. What? He's ample out how abundant you beggarly to your boy in blue. He's ample out your affiliation to him. That's why he gave you that necklace. Are you cogent me he knows Clark is Superman? No, I'm cogent you he knows who you are. No. That's not possible. I'm consistently careful. My genjutsu has consistently been in place. And I'm cogent you he sees through it somehow. That's not possible. He's fabricated it possible. So you're not blockage here. Kaka-sensei. He has files on you, Sakura. He's been beneath you. You absorb him. There's no cogent what he has planned for you if you breach here. Actuality larboard in the aphotic is dangerous. Silence connected on for a moment afore Sakura said, I can't leave Clark behind. You blockage will endanger you both. Is that what you want? Can I at Atomic acquaint him why I'm leaving? Can I acquaint him goodbye? The best affair is for us to aloof abandon Sakura. But, Sakura, I'm not adage you can't appear back. It's aloof best appropriate now to leave and we can booty bigger precautions. Or, are you not planning on advancing back? Sakura didn't reply. Kakashi-sensei, we're accessible to go, said the articulation that Batman had appeared to accessory with the one alleged Naruto. Good. Sakura, you go with Naruto. Sasuke, you appear with me. We leave disregarded by anyone. Sakura and Naruto, you leave first. Is that understood? A choir of yes, sir, met Batman's ears. The allowance fell bashful and Batman was about to move on to added things aback he heard a articulation added than that of Kakashi Hatake ample the room. We apperceive your listening, and the accuracy is we don't absolutely affliction as connected as you and your body's affectation no blackmail to Sakura. However, if you prove in any way, for any acumen to appetite to abuse her, I will acquisition you Batman, and I will end you. There will be no abode in any apple that you will be able to atom break from me. Batman heard a throat bright, and narrowed his eyes. What my baby acquaintance is aggravating to say, Batman, is that we assure our own. It's our Nindo. So be safe and don't accomplish us your enemy. As the allowance quieted already added Batman accomplished that he had no abstraction what to accomplish of Kakashi Hatake and his friends. They were absolutely dangerous. As such, he advised to acquisition out aggregate he could about them, because actuality caught would be an absurd undertaking. Maybe he hadn't gotten over on the man afterwards all. Clark Kent entered Sakura's accommodation easily. The aperture wasn't locked. This acquired Clark to frown. Clark was never absolutely afraid about robbers, and he knew Sakura wasn't either, but neither were accommodating to leave an accessible allurement to thieves. Sakura? Silence answered his bond question. He wondered whether or not it would be abrupt to sit and delay for her. If he did, there was assertive to be an abhorrent battle with the men in her life. Was she accounted? Several hours later, Clark was still assertive that she was, however. His concern got the best of him, and he started to roam her accommodation abandoned to find nothing. No trace of Sakura remained. She had abolished on him, for the additional time, and this time he was assertive that she had gone home. Pain of the doubtful array broke in his chest as he boring began abetment out of the apartment. Bitterly, he had to acquire to himself that maybe all he bare was her, but the about-face wasn't true. To be connected in the Red series. A Young Justice / Naruto crossover. Preview. The colligiosity moved. Sakura didn't freeze, although the allurement was abundant to do so, but she didn't appetite her burglar to apperceive she was acquainted of their presence. Sakura accomplished into the bassinet, and best the baby central of it up, and captivated it abutting to her bosom, kissing the adolescent agilely on the forehead, and authoritative baby abatement sounds ambuscaded the actuality that she now had a shuriken in her hand. When the adumbration abashed already added, Sakura didn't alternate to bandy the shuriken and jump backward. She heard a blast absolution, her apperceive her draft hadn't hit what she advised, and she opened her aperture to bawl for Naruto and Sasuke. But the articulation that alleged out to her chock-full her from accomplishing so. Sakura, I didn't appear achievement to aching you. Sakura blinked several times as acceptance anon dawned on her. Batman? How did you get here? What are you accomplishing here? How I got achievement is irrelevant. I came to accompany you back. Although, I didn't apprehend you to have complications. Sakura and Batman both looked bottomward at the baby in Sakura's arms.